Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Spirit School. I am so excited today to bring you a guest, Cindy Charleyboy. How are you doing, Cindy?
I'm doing really good. Thanks, Danielle.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to get you to introduce yourself in a second and repronounce some of these words I'm probably going to butcher, but I trust that you will bring in the beautiful, correct pronunciation. So we have Cindy Charleyboy is an Indigenous dreamer, traditional healer, and storyteller from the Secwepemc Nation in the interior of BC. And since 2011, she has been sharing her gifts through story, song, laughter, and ceremony. Cindy holds a Bachelor in Arts and First Nations Studies from the UNBC, University of Northern British Columbia, and is a valued member of the Spirit School Collective. She's passionate about sharing her dream medicine both online and in person, working primarily with Indigenous communities, but also offers space for other groups and one on one conversations. So, Cindy, we were going to talk about dreams with you here today, but before we start, would you like to come in and introduce a little bit about yourself, anything that you want to add to that, and correct me on my community pronunciations?
Oh, okay, thanks, Danielle. Well, yes, my name is Cindy Charleyboy. I am Chilcotin, which is one nation, and Secwepemc, another nation. And I am also Norwegian on my late dad's side. And I like to acknowledge all of my ancestry as much and as often as I can because I believe that their skills are coming through in the work that I do. And they all had very, very unique skill sets, and I can use all the help I can get. So, yeah, and I'm calling in today from Secwepemc Ulu, which is part of the Secwepemc territory in what's known as Williams Lake, and also right nearby the Chilcotin territory as well.
I love that. And
Yeah.
you recently kind of moved back to your traditional territories, hey?
I did, yeah. Well, it's been a while already now, but I was down in Vancouver for about 6 years and really loved it. Loved being able to go and kind of learn anything you want at any time and meet with a lot of people from different cultures and around the world. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I love that. I grew up born and raised Vancouver, as you know, so love living in the smaller town now. And one thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because I get questions all the time around dreams, and I've said it time and time and time and time again on this podcast. I am not someone who remembers my dreams often at all. So when I do have some sort of dream like recollection, it really does stand out for me. And I'm probably in the same boat as a lot of other people. What does it mean?
mhm.
How does this make sense? And you're someone who is consistently over the years I've known you has brought a lot of wisdom on the dream landscape and does a lot of work in the dream sphere. So do you want to talk a little bit about how you got into that work, what that work looks like for you? And is it as common? Do you get a ton of messages from people on it?
I I don't. I think I have really hard boundaries where, I used to get people messaging me all the time, but then yeah, I don't get a ton of people asking me. I've got, sort of like my spaces where people can ask me and I keep it at that. But the way that I got into it really was out of necessity. Like I was always a dreamer, from a very young age and had a hard time with a lot of my dreams and went through different like ups and downs with that and sometimes really enjoying it. Like I remember in high school, I used to, if I was dreaming that I was at a party and I woke up, I would just go back to sleep and go back to the party because I wanted to check out like what's happening. And but sometimes it was really like, TMI or scary dreams and things like that. And it would affect my emotions a lot. In the daytime, I felt like, it was kind of like weathering a storm. And I felt like that my emotions were really at the mercy of my dreams.
Mm.
And it wasn't until 2011 I started living a lot differently. I started paying a lot more attention to my spirituality, my beliefs, and things like that. And I realized that my dreams were asking me to do something, right? And I just had to surrender. And I hadn't tried that before. I had tried to, like have fun with them or like talk about them, engage with them, but not really surrender. Yeah, so when I did that, I was very surprised to find that my dreams would respond to me. Like things that were out of alignment in my life, if I worked on that and talked to kind of like, well, how do I say this? If I was to engage with a dream, as bizarre as the dream might be, I felt like that I would get kind of the next piece of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And so at the time, okay, so 2011, I was very much more into reading books, and I loved reading creative nonfiction, which is, it's not fiction, but it's written creatively. And so I would kind of play with things the way that authors were working with their words, and I would talk to my dreams, and I would even say like what I wanted to dream about or what I needed help with. And yeah, things started changing really rapidly in my dream world. And then
Mm.
it took a while for my waking hours to kind of like catch up and realize like, oh, this is really helping me. And yeah, and then I think now I stick around for it because I've had just some huge payoffs. Like I was trying to think, before we talked, I was like, what is it that's keeping me doing this work? Because really, like from the moment that I wake up
Mhm.
and different times of day, I'm prepping myself for when I'm going to be dreaming. And,
Oh,
and I'm hoping for like the big, the big catches, the big dreams that are really going to help fuel my life. Right. And so I was thinking out like, I have like this crazy discipline lifestyle. And what is it that keeps me going with that? And like I said, it's necessity.
yeah.
But then B, if you think about someone who loves like mountain climbing and dirt biking and jumping out of airplanes and everything like that, that's me in my dreams. That I'm
Really?
having like amazing wild experiences, and as well as having healing in my dreams. So that's what keeps me going with it. And along with what I learned over time, I'll say it. I didn't know until a couple of years ago when I returned home that some of those dreams I was having at age 5 were actually cultural signatures of what I
Mm.
would be doing with my life and what my actual path would need me to prepare for. And so I was like pretty surprised when I came home and was working with a mentor, and my Chilcote Nation had given me a bunch of documents and just shared different things with me that around cultural teachings and laws and the language and um, singing. I had been involved in singing since about 2013
Yeah.
because I'm not afraid to make mistakes. Like I will try and just not be shy about it. And so people are like, okay, she'll sing, like let's get her to do it. And yeah, so then when I was reading through all of this, I got back to my dreams and what was happening and realized that yeah, from a young age, I was having like a calling, right?
Yeah.
And it was so hard to deal with. And because of that, disconnect. Like my mom, even though she grew up speaking the language and she, was still fluent, when I was a little girl, she just didn't have those same types of teachings that would have kind of like carried me into being able to learn the things that I needed to learn, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I kind of just was, I guess, like off the deep end with having to learn how to swim by myself and having to learn how to, do a lot of the spiritual practices that I would have learned. I ended up learning through my dreams.
Earlier on, you were talking about how you prepare for your dreams all night. And I have to just say how much peace that gives me. That's something I want to learn more about. I'm doing your dream circle on Friday. So that's something I'll probably bring to the dream circle because just knowing that you can influence your dreams gives me a little bit of comfort because I find that the dreams that I do remember are typically not great or informative or helpful. Even looking back to my childhood, I can recall with great accuracy my first nightmare. The dream I had every time I had a fever. They have like this fever dream, and I still to this day, if I have a fever, which is not often, I have this dream where I'm like swinging on a rope and it's like Lego in front of me, and I'm always about to just hit something. And it's like the same dream every time I have a fever, but all these come back from when I was a kid. And so, what I find for myself is that I just seem to have like incredibly random, unhelpful dreams and like so random. And so, are you saying that I can be more intentional where I can choose to have actually helpful dreams and these apparently random that are kind of pseudo based off of things I'm consuming in the day?
Yeah, your dreams, we give our dreams a vocabulary.
Ooh, I like
And
that.
so our dreams, when we are taking in something new, we'll have a lot of processing dreams. And so sometimes that's annoying because you're like, I dreamt of the same thing I was learning. That's who wants that? Or, say we're gonna dream about relationships. So then we might dream about an ex. But it's really like the vocabulary that we've given our dreams is used for, let's say, like the set, the backdrop, the things are happening. And so you kind of have to be able to be willing. This is where the surrender part comes in. Be willing to see, like, actually, that I dreamed. I'm sure the most common thing said about dreams would be that they're weird, they're bizarre, they're the most annoying, or, I don't like them, they're nightmares. And so kind of changing that approach and realizing that we come to the relationship and bring something and bring some more and not give up, like still continue bringing something.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and asking questions. Like if I, say I was having the reoccurring Lego, you know, flying through the air about to hit something, I might ask that dream, can you show me in a different way what
Ooh.
what's happening? And yeah, because the other thing is, like, because I pay attention a lot, I get to have a lot of variety in my dreams.
Mhm.
So I'm not just having the ex-boyfriend. I'm also having, like for me, I'll have prank dreams because it's a big thing in my family to be able to prank each other or to tell a really good joke. And so I didn't know until maybe 10 years ago that I would be waking up at times just belly laughing because of the prank that just got pulled on me in my dream. And that,
Yeah.
solid pranks. And so if I wasn't paying attention, or like how I was earlier, where I was overwhelmed with them, I might just think, oh, these dreams are heavy, like they're hard to carry, they're too much. I need space from them. But instead, I'm inviting them in, and then I'm yeah, having all kinds of different types of dreams. So yeah, some are heavy
Yeah.
and some are, TMI, or some are those ones where we had them before, but there you could work with every single dream. You could help build that relationship with your dreams.
I love that.
Mhm.
And so there's so many questions I have right now around this. I'm like trying to think about what order I want them in because my question is I'm hearing you talk and you're working with these dreams. Do you wake up feeling rested or do you wake up feeling like you just worked all night?
Oh, no, I mean, once in a while, I think before I started just talking more openly about dreaming and really trusting my dreams more, I at times I felt like I was living a double life. Like I
Yeah.
felt, oh, I'm having all of this, and then I'm also having all of this. But I just kind of like started bringing them closer together. And I
Yeah.
started realizing as well so the things that I do in the daytime matter, the things that I do in the dream time matter. And I'll give away something really advanced, which is that when you make a decision in the dream time, the impact, or like the positive impact that has on your life
Mm.
is so much more powerful than when you make a decision in the waking hours. And
Oh,
so you start to bring that influence of dreams being like expansive and powerful and like a fuel for your life. And so then when I usually typically when I wake up in the morning, I'm like ready, I'm like good to go for the day.
good. Okay.
I wasn't always that way. I often was like how you talked about having feverish dreams. Like I would have a fever or I would have to nap. I would have to sleep a lot. And I would sometimes wake up and feel upset that I had slept because of the dreams.
Yeah,
So sometimes, yes, we all need a little smudge sometimes. And sometimes
absolutely.
we need a break from it too, right?
Yeah, I just say because I never wake up feeling rested. So
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
when I don't dream, which is most of the time, and I don't wake up arrested, I have a joke in my house where I'm like, I swear I was abducted by aliens last night or something. Like, what was I doing that I literally just put my head down and for 9 hours was out and I wake up feeling like I literally worked all night, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I like, okay, how do I say this? I would be very upset if I was unconscious for 9 hours and I didn't know what happened.
Yeah.
I would be trying to remedy that because it's almost like having a hangover or something. Like you're just like, what the hell did I do last night? You know?
Yes. No,
But for
that's,
me, I mean, because I remember my dreams a lot, I would be like, what's going on? Like, I need to remedy this.
yeah.
And yeah, so when I do teach courses and things like that, I am always including sleep. And I think that is something that we have not been taught enough is that sleep is like the number one priority.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeling rested, there's so many different ways that you can feel rested. And then there's lots of different ways to easily start remembering your dreams too. But you know what? I I am, I think, born to do this. So it's easy for me to say, like, this is great for everybody, you know, but I have like Sag moon, Neptune. So my moon and Neptune are like this. And so of course I'm going to be dreaming
Yeah.
and I'll always be dreaming. And yeah, I don't want to go to any, I was just about to go down a big rabbit hole there, but yeah, not everybody has Sag moon. Not everyone's going to be dreaming every single, or like remembering every single night. You
Yeah.
definitely are dreaming, like science shows us that. And I think bringing in more consciousness around the remedies that are available to you, then that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually done any kind of intentional work around, I don't like not knowing what happened for 9 hours. Like I wonder what did happen, and maybe that could explain some things. Or maybe I wouldn't wake up feeling like I just woke up out of a coma. So this is very enlightening for me. And as a medium, my imagination center, like my third eye, like, because you talked about, like, you have dreams, and then, as an adult now, that you were shown certain premonitions in your dreams that have, like, actualized later in life. There's so many things that I see in that kind of like dreamlike awake state that come true. So, do you have similar kind of daydreams, or what do you say about daydreaming versus like the night dreaming? Is there a discernment between them or a difference between them?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference. I think there's about probably five different states of, dreaming and awake. And so some are more powerful than others. And that's across the board. Like I always love paying attention to science. I nerded out in that in high school and always pay attention to what kind of studies are they doing now. And there are different states of consciousness that we are in. And so sometimes, for example, an imagination could be similar to a rumination. It could
Mm.
just be visualizing something again and again. And so that's not necessarily good or bad. It might be bad sometimes, but it's not necessarily going to create or show you like what is really going to happen. If you think about a fantasy, like something that you want to happen, you could think about it again and again and again. If it's not going to happen, it's just not going to happen. But there are different states where our like our ego is a little bit more shut down and our awareness is a little bit more open. And so then we are getting actual information in from, funnily, what they would call the collective. We're getting information from the collective, whether it's the collective consciousness of people or the collective unconscious, and whether it's our subconscious, like we picked up on those, that those things would happen with all of our senses. And now our dream is showing us what we were not really given space to notice.
Right.
And, but yeah, there are different states that you could put yourself into in order to have those like visions come in, and they come in really fast. So it could be, you know, that you're just 3 minutes and lots
Yeah.
is happening, right?
It's
And
like
then
all I
you
have
go to
capacity
sleep
for.
and you're really done.
I love that. I just got this hit that I feel comes from spirit to ask you, and it just kind of like floated in, and it was around, why do you think, the creator would have set this up so that we spend a third of our lives in the dream state?
Well, again, just looking back to science, like we all require sleep in order to function. And
Hmm.
there's certain things that happen when we're sleeping that aren't happening at any other time of the day. There's certain things that we have to go through, and that's a total blessing in my opinion. And so, yeah, I always have a hard time. It's like, is this creator? Is it ancestors? Is it our human nature? Is it the land? Is it all of those things? And I think it's all of those things.
Mm.
We do need sleep. Like we need dreams. We know that we actually need dreams to process and learn.
Mm.
Recently, I found out that you actually have to be sleeping in order to lose weight. I had no
Oh,
idea. Like that's when it actually takes place, is while you're sleeping, not while
all the
you're
girls are
awake.
be napping now. No.
So like there's certain things that we need to be doing. So like we do need to process and learn and understand. And that's where it does take place in dreams. It can take place while you're awake as well,
Mhm.
but it takes place more efficiently while you're sleeping. And so that's another thing you could do, is like you could listen to a favorite author, or, you know, listen to 5 minutes of your Indigenous language before you fall asleep.
Mm.
Your brain, not necessarily your dreams, but your brain will actually process that for like up to 6 hours.
That is so validating for me because before Danielle developed as a medium, I used to have a 50-inch TV at the end of my bed, and I would have it on to the first 48, which is the detective show on the first 48 that follows
Okay.
a murder. Like that's what I would fall asleep to because the voice was very soothing to me, just the voice. And then now, like I will only fall asleep listening to like a Meet Your Angel visualization, or Sonia and the Collective has this beautiful Meet Your Dragon meditation that I love too. And so I'm very careful about what I. So have you had like visitation dreams, meaning like, and how do they differentiate from one another? Like do you have a name, like a wisdom dream versus like a visitation dream? I'm just kind of making that up on the fly,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
that's okay. I believe that there are many, many different genres of dreams. But when I think of a visitation dream, I always think that the closest definition that comes to mind is that someone visited you in your dream. A deceased loved one visited you in your dream. Or it could be that someone else's loved one visited you in the dream. But that's kind of, I would say that's a little bit different.
yeah.
And so what I've learned over time, my relationship with dreams, what I learned over time was that to just pay attention, notice what dreams are coming in, celebrate them, even if they weren't the biggest, best dream that you hoped for, right? My first dream that I had of my grandmother after she passed away, she was dancing and she came across the room. And at first I didn't recognize her because she was young.
Yeah.
And I just thought, oh, a Chilcotin woman, who is she? And she danced over and then she sat down on the bed beside me. And I I said, holy shit, grandma, you look so good. you look so shiny. And I put my head on her shoulder. And then
Mm.
when I woke up, I was so happy. And I put on the music that was in the dream and I danced around. And so it was like very, very energizing, right? But I was thinking when one of my uncles passed away, my uncle Phil, the first time I saw him in a dream, he didn't say anything.
Mm.
He was just on the other side of this, like a sliding doorway, and he was standing there with someone else. And he looked at me and he recognized me, and I recognized him, but I don't think I said anything either.
Yeah.
And so then I have had those types of dreams where, you know, the person's there in your dream and you're like, oh, did I just make this up? Like,
Mm.
was I just wishing to see them, or is that it? Like, is my Phil ever going to come in my dream again?
Yeah.
And I'll share a story. I had this dream with him months later, like almost a year after he passed. And I can't remember how long it was after he passed, within the year. It could have only just been months after. But I dreamt that I was walking along with my Uncle Phil, and we turned at this street that was called Jupiter. And we started walking up these large stone steps. And he was ranting about something. And he turned around, he's kind of waiting for me to catch up with him. And he turned around and he said, you know what pissed me off the most was shopping for sheets at Walmart. And so then anyway, I was just like, real, oh yeah, like really? And I'm just really interested in anything he had to say. And he said, I would rather sleep on the hide of a grizzly bear or an elephant or one of them veer angels, the kind of angels that will slap you if you're trying to veer off the road. And so I woke up and I was like, holy shit, like that was my Uncle Phil. And I was camping at the time. And I remember sitting up in the tent and like trying to find a pen and paper and everything. And I was like, that was for sure him. Like he worked as a guide outfitter. He was always working on ranches and with horses and outdoors and hunting and everything like that. And he had a crazy, crazy sense of humor. And so I was like, I challenge you to bring me any literature in the world where someone actually talked about skinning
Walmart.
an angel to sleep on their hide because it'd be so soft. I'm like, what? Like this was him,
Yes.
was him. And I was just so blessed that there's no way anyone would have talked to me about that kind of thing. And yeah, I've also had family members speak to me in the language and say words that would have never been spoken to me in my lifetime. But I was able to go and ask language teachers, like, what does this mean? And it
Wow.
was exact to the context of the
Wow.
dream. So I'm getting like
I
passionate here, Danielle. So
Yeah, I feel it. I'm like, I want to go to sleep now. I'm like, I want to I want to have a whole process because I want some of this too. But these are beautiful stories. I think back to, I was fresh to doing full-time mediumship. So it was probably 2020. And my ex, he had a coworker pass away. Me and this coworker didn't necessarily hit it off. I didn't know her that long. We weren't even together that long. So, I mean, it had been probably 10 years by this time that she came into my dream. And I had this very vivid dream. I even wrote it down because my dream journal has like 4 entries in it from like the past like 5 years.
yeah.
And I wrote it down and she came through this dream. It was so vivid. And in the dream, I was like reconciling with her. I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't give you a chance. Like I didn't go out of my way to like try to make you included. Like I was a bit lost myself at the time. This is well before I developed mediumship and we went through this whole like apologizing dream and then went out through my day and I went to my reading a couple hours later and it was one of my ex's colleagues that booked a reading with me. And she just wanted to connect with this girl that she had lost, right? Which
Wow.
was her friend. And I get covered in shivers thinking about it. And it was probably, honestly, Cindy, one of the only readings I've ever cried in. I literally could not hold it back. It was such a profound experience. And I'm so glad she came to me in my dream before this session, because I don't know if I would have picked her up as clearly in the session if we hadn't had that connection before. And it was like really, really profound. But for me, when I woke up, I was like, this is a visitation dream. And it was just so clear for me. It was probably the most clear visitation dream I'd ever had.
Mhm.
Being proper Canadian, I was apologizing the whole time.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really profound. And yeah, that's what I'll say around that. And I know that, doing readings over many, many years, there's a specific loss that people have that is like a really hard loss. They had a very similar dream. And it
Mhm.
was hard because they would think that it was a visitation dream, but was very disturbing. And
Mhm.
so I kept seeing it as a pattern, as Spirit gives me cluster lessons. And I went to Spirit once with it, and I was like, why are they all having the same dream? And they're so disturbing. I don't have a whole lot to comfort them on. And they did bring through that, like, sometimes we can't process things in our waking state. And so then we go to our dream state and we process, and that's just kind of, but it's hard to tell, like, a grieving person, like, this is when you know it's a visitation, and this is when it's like a processing dream. It can be really hard, right?
It is, and it's not close at all. But I remember when my dad first passed away, I started having dreams with him right away. Actually, I woke from a dream the moment that he passed with him. He was like grabbing my hand so tightly that when I woke up, I knew he had passed. But my dad at different times had been really verbally abusive. And so after he passed away, or like before he passed away for a couple of years, we were doing really, really well. And then after he passed away, one of the dreams I had, he was like yelling at me. He was angry. He was driving the vehicle and I was sitting in the passenger seat and I was scared. Right. And so when I woke up, I really had to think like, was this my dad? Is this just my old fears coming up? Like, what is this? And at the time, like, because I have so much experience working with my dream, at the time, I kind of knew actually this was my dad.
Yeah.
He was giving me shit about something, and it's something that really hurt my feelings. And no one has ever said that to me before or since, but they probably should have, because I actually have changed a bit my approach that he was talking about.
Hmm.
Yeah, so but when you think about those types of dreams, which I can only imagine what those people were having if they're all having like a similar dream about a very difficult event. It is,
Yeah.
I would call it a trauma dream.
Okay.
And it's most likely bringing up a trauma that they experienced, and that intensity of the fear and the loss and everything is right there.
Yeah.
And when we experience a trauma dream, it's not just in our mind, it is actually happening in our entire body.
Hmm.
So like waking up, like how you said you woke up from that visitation dream with like kind of like a healing feeling, and then your emotions were different the next day and when you did the reading, right? So your whole body is participating during that visitation or during a trauma dream. I was just about to make an appropriate joke, but anyway, I
They're welcome here. No.
so anyway, I was going to say, we actually know, and scientifically we know that we can train people how to go into that dream with a plan, and they
Right.
can revisit that dream, they can change that dream. They can actually, if the dream comes up spontaneously when they weren't expecting it, there's things that they can do to shift that dream. It could
Hmm.
even be like hugging the loved one, it could be singing, it could be having helpers come in. There's all sorts of different things, right? And this is actually one of the ways that soldiers with PTSD are working to overcome their PTSD is through lucid dreaming practices. And then they're able to calm the nervous system that's like fully activated during the dream. They can actually calm it during the dream and have a different experience and wake up feeling more like they have a say in their life and that that doesn't have the same power over them anymore.
Yeah.
So they wake up with a feeling of healing and empowerment, and they have this new thing that they can do,
Yeah.
and they can do it again and again if they want. They can go and dream and do something amazing in their dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about even, and that's amazing to know that that work's being done out there because I look at my kids, they're 7 and 10, and a couple months ago they saw something on Netflix that just disturbed them, and it really disturbed their dreams and their sleep. And, I imagine how empowering it would be being able to tell them, like, you can go in and start there and like recreate a different experience. I don't
Mhm.
I don't know. Is that like a great tip? Because I'm thinking about all the moms out there listening who probably have a similar experience, right?
Yeah, and I think it's different. So you just think back to when you were a kid and when you were a teenager, and all of those emotions are so heightened. The world is so big and it's right there. Like your world is
Yeah.
huge and your emotions are huge. And so I always start with what does that little kid want or need? And so even for me, for myself, if I need to sleep with the light on, I'll sleep with the light on,
Hmm.
finding out what they need in order to feel safe. And I would really start with, it just depends. Like some people will come and see me and they literally just need a smudge. They need to talk about it. They are, sometimes having night terrors or sometimes sleepwalking.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is to do with being able to calm during our waking hours as well.
Right.
And those things usually come up. They can come up from, like, for me, it was when I saw Thriller with Michael Jackson. Like I
Oh,
loved it. And then I had nightmares for like 6 months.
yes. Mine was The Changeling. It was that horror
Yes.
movie from the 70s. It destroyed my sleep as a youth. Like every time I was like, I did not want to close my eyes.
No, because it comes back, right? It's your fear. And so, yeah, for kids, I would say it's something different. Like you wouldn't really say to kids like, "Hey, we're gonna do shadow work now."
We're gonna dive right back in, Scorpio rising mom, just dive back into that dream now.
Like,
What
set.
we do before bed, I try to set him up for success. We go to bed, I'm like, let's name like 5 things we're grateful for from the day. And before they go to sleep, I'm like, what should we dream about tonight? I actually do this with them intuitively. I don't do it for myself, but I do it for them where I'm like, what should we dream about tonight? Or I hope we meet up in our dreams. So I think I do that with them, just never for myself. I should probably do that for myself a bit more.
Yeah, and I think if you can, and if they're open to it, like another time, maybe even try, getting them to talk about like what was happening in that dream and what would they do if they could, like would they fight the thing? Would they, what kind of powers do they need in order to be able to protect themselves in that space? And yeah, having code words or having a certain type of animal that is with them, protecting them. And maybe it's a made up animal. Maybe it's, an animal that has like hooves and also wings and I'm not very good at this part right now, but
It's all good.
telling
Yeah,
this,
a
like
mythical
getting
being.
them to tell the story, right?
Yeah,
Because the more that they can create it,
yeah.
the more likely that they could call on that when they need it.
I wonder if you have these too, the dreams where like you can't move or you're like slow and sluggish, like no matter how hard you try, you can't run fast, you can't open the door, and then the falling dreams. And then like you wake up. So do you have any insight on those? Those are two very common things for me.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, all I can say is I feel your pain. I've had those types of dreams too, where I'm running from something, but I'm just running in spot, like
Yeah.
running spot, and I can't actually get to safety. And it's so frustrating. And I just think it is one of those things that is universal. Yeah, universally, we do have falling dreams. We do have, apparently it's common to have dreams of teeth falling out.
Oh, wow.
It's really common to need the bathroom, but for some reason you can't find the bathroom, or there's some really bizarre setup of the bathroom where you're just not going to have privacy. So you end up deciding like, heck with it. This is too weird. I'm not going in this bathroom. Right. And so unfortunately, we do have those kind of dreams. And yeah, there could be different reasons for it. I remember my dad, he would get really serious and he would say, oh, I dreamt that I was in this small room and it was just getting smaller and smaller and I couldn't get out of the door. And he would say, what does it mean? And then before I could start telling him what it meant, and then he would just crack a joke and he would say, oh, I would just start my chainsaw and cut my way out of there and whatever. So yeah, he never really would get into that place of what does it actually mean for you, Dad?
Yeah.
Like what does it mean when you can't move or when you're everything is going slow and it's just like you just want to do the thing but you can't. And how is that for you in another part of your life or in your past? And what would it mean to you if you could move really fast or you could just jump up out of there?
One thing I've been researching a lot in the past couple of years is NDEs, like the near death experiences, just because I'm curious about the afterlife like everyone else. And I'm curious about what insights people bring back from the other realms. And one thing that I notice is quite common from people who have like these near death experiences that come back is how they comment how this life is more of a dream.
Yeah. I don't know a lot about NDEs. Like I haven't been around people that experience them personally,
Hmm.
but I will say that, yeah, in a lot of Indigenous cultures, we do believe that our waking hour is the dream and that we're not fully aware. We're asleep right now. We're just doing things unconsciously, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if you were going to drive from your home to spirit school, you wouldn't have to think about it a lot. You could be thinking about other things.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of in a little bit of an unconscious zone.
Yeah.
And, but when you are awake in the dream time and when you're consciously aware that you're dreaming and that all of these different things are happening, it's a feeling of more alive than almost anything that I've felt
Yeah.
in my waking hours. It's so incredible. Yeah, science backs that up, like where it'll show like the parts of your brain that are active. And when you become conscious in your dream, then all of your brain lights up. Your body is experiencing like every single thing. And that's why they say you're paralyzed, is because otherwise you'd be like running, jumping, and doing all these things in the middle of the
Just
night, right?
starfishes everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So I believe it. I think, I of course I haven't had an NDE myself, but one of my goals in dreaming and being conscious is that I pray that when I pass, that I'll pass in my sleep, in my dream, and that I'll be conscious while I'm passing.
Mhm.
And through that, then I hope to have like this incredible experience of, instead of just falling asleep and everything's black,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll see. I don't know. I feel like maybe it could happen because I tried a lot to be able to do all these different things. I feel I'll be able to have that reward.
Ah, I love that. And you spoke to something that I feel in mediumship, which is, when people say like, "Oh, I talk to the dead," I'm like, no, they're much more alive than we are, right? Like it just feels more alive where they are. Like we feel almost dead in comparison to like their energy that just might speak to the ecosystem that they exist within. That,
Feel the amount of joy and freedom of movement that I've seen that they have, for my grandmother to go from being in a wheelchair and being worried and not having like the best, I shouldn't say that. She did have the best life, but like not having the experience that she wanted to have. She loved
mhm,
to dance.
yeah,
And so then to see my grandma just dancing,
yeah,
even had that slight movement of her shoulders and walking over to me, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah,
Like,
I get
wow.
covered in shivers. Even just you talking about that, I'm covered in shivers head to toe. Beautiful, beautiful, Cindy. Okay, let's get to the audience
Okay.
question. And thank you so much for giving me that perspective. I know I gave you a lot of questions that are just kind of like coming off the top of the dome here today. We didn't even talk about sleep paralysis. I'm like, there's so
Yeah.
much more I want to talk about. So the question that came in, and this is quite common that I do receive something like this, but to summarize what they were asking is, how do you discern when a spirit's message is meant to be acted upon, especially in sensitive cases like unresolved death or missing persons? That's their experience. But I suppose what we can ask about this is like, say you get in relationship with your dream state and you feel confident in this process and you have like your way of being with it, and then you receive information in a dream that could help someone else possibly, where does that responsibility kind of lie?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say that in terms of dreaming, when you get a dream and you're feeling really good about the dream or you're feeling really confident and you're thinking like, oh, I should tell this person. Like, wouldn't they want to know it's about them? Or
Yeah.
I would say that I've learned time and again to really check in and see, do you have consent to share your dream? Because as many times as I'll just blurt my dreams out. But if I blurt my dream out and it's about them or
Yeah.
about their situation, that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
And so you kind of know, like over time, you kind of know, or you learn, is this a dream where I'm learning something? Is this a dream where I'm supposed to act on it? How would I act on it? You learn over time, like your relationship.
Yeah.
And I have had a dream before where someone came and visited me, and it was just as though if someone walked in here right now, that was
Mm.
the type of situation that it was. Like they were as alive as me, and they said to me in the dream, I need to let my dad know that I'm okay. I need you to let my dad know that I'm okay. And
Yeah.
so yeah, when I woke up from that one, I was like, and I didn't know the dad. I didn't know the person. I didn't know the dad, but
Yeah.
I had this image of a woman that I knew that had been in a training with like 10 years prior, and we'd stayed in touch on Facebook.
Yeah.
And so I really had to think about it because I was like, oh, I don't know if I don't know, like what, I don't know, right? And so I just had to reach out to her and say, like, is it okay if I tell you this? And then I sent it to her I wrote it down and I sent it to her an email just because we were both working. It was the, midday and whatever. And I didn't know if she was going to get back to me. I didn't know if this was connected with her for sure or not, right?
Yeah.
And I was a little bit nervous. And then I got more nervous because she messaged me back right away. Oh my gosh, it's my stepson.
Oh,
I'm gonna tell his dad right now, and I'm gonna tell his mom. And so I was like, like wait. And so I remember, ask their consent, like make sure they're okay, right?
yeah.
And it ended up being, yeah, like very true, like what I had seen. There
Yeah.
was several messages that came through for them and several ways that they knew for sure that it was him.
Yeah.
And so very powerful. But I also have had like best friends who I've told something to, and then they've just felt like, you want to have nothing to do with you.
I had a similar situation. I had a dream visitation from my brother's best friend who passed away. And it was like 5 years after he passed. And I just put on my Facebook, I'm like, thanks for the visit last night. And I named their name. And it was a really cool visit. And I grew up with this person. We spent our childhoods together. Like we were like brother and sister. And the mom reached out to me because she'd seen it on Facebook. He visited you, da da da. And I said, I didn't want to say it on Facebook. I'm like, if you want to hop on a phone call, like I would love to tell you about my dream and answer any questions. I tried to explain to her because she knew I was a medium. And she was like, well, what does this mean? Like you dreamed about him. Like what was the dream? And I just kind of shared it. And she said to me, "Can you never call him in again? Because if he's with you, then he can't be with me." And she had like this belief that because he was with me in the dream, he couldn't be with her. Of course, as a medium, I know that to not be true, but it was still a real reaction from the mom and a real concern and worry. I honored that wish for her, but it was a time that it wasn't received all that well, to be honest.
It's hard. And
Hard.
so what I would say for people that are wanting to have more of a relationship with their dreams is like, this is great, this exchange that you and I have right now, and it's like bringing up memories and we're remembering dreams or we're remembering moments and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you really have to be able to create a safe space for sharing those dreams, because they're they're some of our most, I guess, like sensitive moments,
Yeah.
and valuable, and so valuable. And it would maybe be easy to say to someone, oh yeah, no problem, I'm so sorry, or whatever, but you still have that dream, and
Yeah.
he did visit you, and that is so cool. So like going back to the other person's question about like how do you know when to act on it, is it could be as simple as, like how I got up and I put on that song that my grandma was dancing to and I danced, and
Mm-hmm.
that was me honoring the dream.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been other times where I've got up and I've done just a little something, and in that way, I then knew, do I need to do more? Or I might have more come to me. Okay, now I can do more.
Yeah.
And sometimes, in the dream, you just know, like, yep, I'm going to tell the person this is something that's meant to be shared. And yeah, it's not always received well.
Yeah.
I remember too, like posting about that dream about my grandma dancing and the song that she played, because I don't listen to country music,
Yeah.
but I knew my grandma would love it, right? And so I had to really search and find it. And then I thought, well, I want to share on Facebook and tag a couple of my cousins, and I was hoping that they're not like, oh, who does she? Why isn't she keeping it private or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, a couple of them commented and said, oh yeah, it must mean there's going to be a wedding this summer. Like,
Mm,
oh, grandma's getting ready to dance. And one of them said, I listen to that song every single day in my truck when I'm out on the ranch. And so
mm.
I was just like, oh my God, because I had to search for that song, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, you just kind of never know. And yeah, just encourage yourself to honor a little bit the dream, and trust that, yeah, even if the message doesn't come across or something that, yeah.
It will go where it needs to go. And
um,
let the spirit world figure it out. I had a situation where I had this young boy come visit me in my room when I was awake, and I knew he had just passed away. And I just said to him, "I will work for you. Bring your mom to me." Right. And within a month, I had forgotten I said that, but his mom ended up in my inbox within a month. And so, like, I do believe if there's like this responsibility we feel to get somebody information that they need to know, let the spirit world orchestrate that in
yeah.
real life, and let them work their magic. And you'd be surprised at what paths they might put in front of you to speak to that person, like naturally and organically. So we have some exciting things coming up together. I asked you to come to Spirit School HQ, so the in person to come teach a dream circle and host a dream circle. So we're doing that this Friday. Do you want to share anything about that or anything else exciting we have going on? I'll leave that to you
Well,
and
I will just say
things.
I'm so excited about that. I can't wait to be there in person. I was passing through Squamish one time and got to go scope it out. And that was so fun. But yeah, I love sitting with people and sharing a bit about how they can remember their dreams more, and giving them those kind of clues about that would make them want to like be curious about remembering their dreams,
Hmm.
and just having fun, having laughs, and hopefully sharing some dreams with each other.
Yeah.
And even if it is, that some folks will always come that are like, I don't remember my dreams. And then they'll tell you like two really amazing dreams.
Yeah.
Oh,
You just need
oh, I
one.
didn't remember the dream, but so we'll have fun. And I think, yeah, it's always a pleasure be in those circles, and yeah, there'll be something about, being able to connect with the land as well in dreaming.
Yeah.
And so I always find that very, very special.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. So that's going to be this Friday. Hopefully, we'll do another one in the future as well.
Yes.
And
And
yeah.
one thing I wanted to bring up is I want to say thank you so much, Danielle, not just for having me on the podcast, not for just, inviting me in, welcoming me to have a dream circle, but I have had so much growth through the different courses that I've done with you. I'm getting all emotional, but yeah, it's made a huge difference for me in the way that I do my work. A lot of the work that I do has been, behind the scenes with Indigenous communities. And so I've had a hard time speaking about that publicly. I've always just been often hired through word of mouth, or people have met me and they've experienced what I can do. And so they will ask me to come in as a speaker or whatever. And, but I took the calling twice, loved it both times, especially the second time was like at the beginning of this year,
Mm.
and also took the declaration with you. And so today I was like, yeah, is there anything else I want to share? And I want to say to folks that are listening, if they've kind of been on the fence about coming in and learning from you or coming into the collective, I would say just go for it. You won't have any doubts after you've been there for a bit. You'll realize like, yeah, it's for everybody really to be able to, be more confident in whether it's their spiritual practice or their business or their relationships. Like I feel it's really helped me a lot. So
Thank you so much. That's so kind. I don't, I'm not the best at taking compliments, but I just want to say thank you. It's been a joy to like be your mentor. And, I love teaching business and I hope I teach it in a way that, feels good in mind, body, soul, spirit, connection, earth, heavens, all the things. So thank you for that really kind feedback and a little bit of a plug there for the collective. I really do appreciate it, Cindy. And it's been a joy to get to know you over these years. And I'm sure that this is just the beginning for us because we have some exciting things planned. So thank you, Cindy, very much. And how can people find you if they want to take a look at your work?
most easily they could find me on Instagram, Raven Girl Dreams, or at Cindy M. Charleyboy.
Mhm.
And I'm not super active there, but I am a little bit sometimes. And I also have my link in bio kind of thing where people can figure out how to reach me. And one thing I will share is that I mainly work with groups. I don't often do one-to-ones, but if I have openings for that, then I will. But it's most enlivening for me to be able to work with groups. And a lot of the time I'll prioritize Indigenous groups because I have, a unique knowledge and experience within that, and that's kind of like my family, right? That's where my
Yeah.
heart is, and I really learn so much when I work with Indigenous folks who are um so closely connected with the land, and we're so closely connected with our culture and language and all of our art, and our capacity is growing. We're recovering from colonization and learning to be ourselves again. So I find that work really, really rewarding.
And if you're in community and you're listening to this and you get excited, like we have some exciting things coming for you through Spirit School that me and Cindy will be collaborating on, and very excited for that. And I just want to say thank you for your time, your energy, your wisdom, your presence. It was beautiful, and I know that the dreamers out there of Spirit School and those who are curious about it will get a lot of insight from this conversation. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Danielle.